Hello everyone and welcome to another video of 3 pins and games, and in this video it's going to be an interesting look at Metacritic. So once again, 3 pins and games is my outlet to talk about video game industry, talk about the business side of things mainly, and other things I find interesting. So today I'm going to be looking at, is Metacritic still useful for launch sales? Anyone in gaming knows what Metacritic is, but just in case you don't know, Metacritic is a aggregate site. Used to aggregate reviews from various outlets and give it a score over 100, and you see your rating from various reviews across the internet. Now, before I go on, I'm going to be sharing a lot of games, a lot of numbers, a lot of charts. I made some assumptions to start with, so I'll start with that. Just to also mention, this is part of the series I'm working on, what I consider the 7 skills in gaming, what I consider the things that are essential in the gaming industry nowadays, to help you have a successful launch and successful sales in your game. Now, what am I using to judge if something is successful? The first thing is press release from investors or physical presentation or whatever, any developer comments, sales reports from Famitsu, Sakana, GST, any other place that gives data, like analyst sites like Ampere and Steam Spy, Game Discover Co. And finally, I look at peak player count and Metacritic if I really can't find any information on all those things. So that's where the final check is done, in my opinion. Now, just to paraphrase, this is a mostly subjective video. It may appear to be objective, but I won't say it's scientifically based, so I can't really say it's objective. There are some numbers there that will back up some of the things I'll claim, but I said mostly my personal opinion on what I think Metacritic does in this day and age. Now, just other assumptions: budget of the game, size of the studio, the scale, other things I just think about when I'm assuming how successful a game is. These are things I would think on a personal level that I may not be able to get information, so I'm going to assume on based on what I know and my knowledge of the gaming industry. Now, this chart shows a brief breakdown of Metacritic and this score distribution. Now, as at 22nd of July, when I pick up the games there from Metacritic from 2022-2025, I can see that we have a large number of games falling in between the 70 to 79 range on Metacritic, and they're followed by 80 to 89. That's sweet spots. So very few games get above 90. So if your game gets above 90, like Clear Obscure this year, hooray, you're one of the few games that get that score. And yes, I think that score is usually reserved for games that are usually Game of the Year candidate or masterpieces. In my opinion, usually once in a decade experiences. Usually, if maybe you're getting 95 and above, you're probably making a game that is a generational game. If you're getting a 95 and above on Metacritic, you're getting an 80, 97, 98. You're one of those guys like Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time. Those are one of the games that get those high scores. Yeah. And I further broke down 80 to 85, 80 to 89, to 80 to 85, and 85 to 89. And the reason why I broke it down into those two tranches is because I believe even though it's the same 10 point range, games that fall in between 80 and 84 on Metacritic tend to be, would I say, highly competitive in that space. So what I'll say is that for indie games, if you're an indie game developer, I think if your game gets above 70, so you are really in okay. If your gameplay is good, if you have something unique about your music or story, if your gameplay is good enough, your games can still find relative success. It has something that is unique about the gameplay. If the gameplay is not so unique, maybe the gameplay is standard, Metroidvania like gameplay or standard combat or standard exploration, at least your world level, the design, those things should be stand out and different. For example, Hello Night. We all, happy to see the release day announcement for Hello Night Silk Song. But if you look at Silk Song's gameplay in general, it's nothing that really has been done before, nothing too unique. But a lot of people are, like me that played the original game, love the bug world, the traversal, how the world is interconnected, everything around it, exploration of those things. They make sure, even though the combat and the movement is not so different from other games that I've released, and maybe not be as good as the Metroid games, it is good in other areas to make up for that lack of distinction. And even in the gameplay, they try and find one or two unique mechanics that are not in other games to at least differentiate it. I think that's very key. Even if it's just one or two mechanics that you want to add to just make your gameplay differentiated and unique, and that's important. So an indie game, anything between 70 and above should be fine. For a AAA developer, I think you should be aiming for 85 to 89. I think that's the perfect spot for a AAA developer. I think your game getting between 80 and 84, it's a tricky spot, because unless you're a big franchise, established franchise, even if you're established franchise, if your brand is not maybe as strong as it was in the past, you may find it difficult in that score range, especially because you're going to be competing with a lot of AA games and also indie games in that space. If you're a AA developer, you're making a AA game like Space Marine 2, 80 to 84, 80 and above is fine. Just try and get 80 and above. I think that's fine for most developers. If you get between 70 and 79, not so bad. If you have something unique, like in gameplay, or nice world or lore, something that will draw players in to it. Because if you're getting 70, you should have something unique in your gameplay. It just means maybe the other things involved in the game is not good enough, but if you have unique gameplay, or at least something that is differentiated enough, you will get new audiences. But aside from that, you should try and get 80 and above if you're a AA developer. You're making a game that relatively not too expensive, but expensive enough. And the reason why I said I don't recommend AAA games, if they get within that score, is because it is a challenging market, and perception of your game in the market from the core players and maybe people that look at Metacritic may be very low, especially when you're looking at other games that are not as popular or not as big as yours, having similar scores. So you don't want to be in that category, in my opinion, after spending 200 million plus on your game. So I just feel AAA developers aim for that. Now, when I say aim for that, nobody can really predict your scores when it comes to Metacritic. But I'll say generally previews and how the critics talk about your games in previews gives a general idea where your game will line up. There's some games that from the discussion from the previews, it's gonna be a sure hit miss. Like Suicide Squad was not surprising, it was a miss. But we'll go into other games later. But just the brief thing I want to talk about. Now, I also did a chart checking out, what's the ratio of games that I feel are successful. Now, this is where it gets really subjective. I looked at several games. I tried to make it, to match the total distribution on Metacritic to a bit. But just from what I looked at, most of the games in 90 and above were very successful. Very few games in below 50 were successful, which makes sense. Very few games between 60 and 69 were successful. Lots of games between 70 and 79 were successful as well. I said a lot of indie games coming here, AAA games coming here as well, AA games. So a lot of games from in that range. That's where the bulk of games are. So it makes sense that a lot of the games will be successful since so many games get within that score. And of course, we can see this high percentage of success for 85 to 89, which makes sense. The 80 to 84, not as successful as 85 to 89. And the reason for that is I just feel if you're not really an established game or a sports game or something, it's a very difficult place to compete. and it just usually gives the impression, based on comments online, like that game is just good enough and not great. So it'd be best if we can get far above that for a AAA developer. And I think we have a lot of games that people expect to do okay, but will just not sell so well, or AAA games will just sell good enough but not meet high profit expectations, and that's where a lot of games land in that score range. Now I'm gonna show a bunch of numbers, a bunch of charts and games that I used to draft these charts, and some tables as well. And I'll just use that to go through a list of games and point some of the games I find interesting and their scores on Metacritic, and what happened at launch and how their sales has been success wise. Then I'll just wrap up the video with some recommendations. Alright, now moving on to this section of the video, we can see we're starting off here. And just to preface, you can see here that this was the score distribution. This was the score distribution on Metacritic as at when I picked up the numbers. Then total about 161,642 reviews, and just about 39 of them were above 90. Now, of course, Metacritic has different. They have different what they call it in their search and filter engines. Sometimes a game may appear more than once, or they may have DLC and all those things there, so that may affect their score. But that was the easiest way for me to just have a distribution of number and see where most games fall in terms of the points. So you can see here that we have a lot of games under 70 to 79. So yeah, it makes sense that the higher ratio of them will be successful as well, because of they represent almost 50% of the games in terms of Metacritic. Then we look here at I just broke down the 80 to 89 here as well, and there's another chart here somewhere. Yeah, the number of games successful, just give a percentage as well. We can see that 40% of the games in 70 and 79 are highly successful, then almost 76%, then 95% and above. So that makes sense. Now let's go to a bunch of games. So a lot of games here. I hope I can go through a good number. I don't want to go through everything, but this was just for a personal exercise to see if Metacritic is actually relevant, and see maybe my bias in Metacritic numbers actually make any sense. So yeah. So first, we have the 90s. Majority of these games are very successful, commercially successful. Sale of the Kingdom 2023 launched with fantastic sales number, about 20 million first weekend, 3 days, great number. Elden Ring, like 10 million in a month. They're about Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring again. So yeah, we have a lot of games here that were successful. God of War Ragnarok, Astrobot was successful as well. Space Fiction, Expedition 3, Dark Fortress was out on early access already, but the full retail launch did well as well for the company, so I put that there. Metaphor ReFantazio, they announced that sold 2 million for a new IP. Getting this high score, I think is good. Now, some may say the sales are not fantastic, but for a new IP and they still have room to port the game to Nintendo Switch, I think the game has done well for itself for 2 million, and it will continue to sell well if word of mouth continues to take it far. Though I don't think word of mouth is as strong as a Persona franchise, but I think it has done okay for a new IP. We have games like Super Mario Wonder, Blueprint, Street Fighter 6, great sales for them. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the one that may be shaky on some ground. Square Enix said it didn't really meet their expectations, though it was exclusive to PlayStation 5. Maybe the install base was not enough to generate the sales they wanted. I can't say, but I'll put it at maybe. I think it has probably been successful now, but the Steam ports, I can't say. But yeah, that has been a mixed bag for Square Enix. In my opinion, I just think the Final Fantasy brand is not as strong as it used to be, and making a game that kind of caters to those that started the brand on the PS1 era is not it's not nice to me. I just think the franchise needs a reboot from the ground up. No numbers, reboot the franchise, and go back to what makes the brand the brand. I think a lot of people did not feel Final Fantasy 16, was what the brand was. So I think they should go back and find the brand essence of Final Fantasy and then communicate in their next game. Now, Blueprints, indie game, great success. Chain Echo, satisfactory, Against the Storm, UFO 50 coming to Switch very soon as well. Great game. Tekken 8, Stave the Diver, Animal Will, Balatro. These are all games that were highly successful in their categories. Now, Dead Space got an 89. I think maybe the Xbox version got a 90 as well. I'll say maybe because it didn't perform so badly, but I think maybe attention to this game and Callisto Protocol, maybe they clashed a bit, or maybe the survivor horror genre is not just doing so well unless you're Resident Evil. Not many games a lot of games seem to be coming out nowadays. We have Silent Hills coming back, these guys, Chronos, Blueprint team announced Chronos as well, so maybe the genre is seeing a comeback. But yeah, maybe so maybe the genre is seeing a comeback. So maybe Dead Space and Callisto Protocol were the ones to help bring back the resurgence of those games. But yeah, I'll put it at maybe. I'm not sure how was successful. So looking at the games between 89 to 85, we can see a lot of them were very successful as well. Neon White, Immortality, Rogue Legacy, Cocoon, Monster Hunter Wild, Deadloop, okay, not too fantastic. Vampire Survivors, great success. Gran Turismo, one of the highest revenues in the Gran Turismo series right now, great success. Hi-Fi Rush, maybe the studio closed down, so I can't really say much on that. Xbox Game Pass also, kind of clouds whether a game is successful or not, so you can't really say. Never did well. Return to Monkey Island, and Prince of Persia Lost Crown. I think I can say Prince of Persia Lost Crown didn't really meet Ubisoft expectations, so yeah, that was probably a no. So can't really say much of that. Return of the Monkey Island, maybe, I'm not so sure. Nothing really gives me heads up. I think the only thing they said was the fastest selling Return to Monkey Island game, but I don't really know what the previous the best selling, what the numbers for the previous games were, so I can't really compare. Fastest selling, it's not really a metric unless I know what the other game sold, and I couldn't find that anywhere, so I just put it maybe there. Someone can correct me if they know. Unicorn Overlord did well. Dragon's Dogma 2, really fantastic game. 3 million in about 2 months or 3 months there, about 3 million copies, which is the reason why another game we'll mention down below, I was surprised didn't hit that number, but because Dragon Dogma, good IP, but I don't think it's a highly mainstream IP, and I felt the other series should have sold at least comparable to it or more. Silent Hill 2 remake did well, yeah. Bayonetta, okay-ish, about 1 million sales announced, nothing too fantastic on Nintendo Switch. Doom the Dark Ages, it's been a mixed bag. I can't really get any cool figures on that, but analysts seem to think he hasn't done well, so as I put it, maybe there. Shadow's Gambit, The Curse Cruise, or the Shadow Crush, these are games, and many games have done well, like Peak, fantastic game this year. I think more than 500k copies sold, almost 1 million copies sold, I think, at this point, so that's done well for itself. Nice sales as well. Then we go to continue down the range where I think we will start seeing some AAA games that people expect to do well, but fumbled. We have the Midnight Suns. We didn't make 2K's expectations. That was clear. Forza Motorsports, bad marketing in my opinion. The game was buggy and just didn't live up to expectations. Many things. So yeah, makes sense. So when you get that score, you're competing a lot of games in that range, and if you can't do better than them, you're not gonna get those sales. Dumb Folk, yeah, not so well. Helldivers 2, smash hits, unique gameplay, very unique. The whole war aspects. Yeah, they leverage a lot of things to make the game stand out, which of the thing I said earlier. You have to make sure your game stands out and is differentiated. AC Shadows, I can see this one is successful at this point. It was a maybe for me initially, but at this point, yeah, it has done well. The reason why it's a maybe for me because I really didn't have a sense of the in terms of sales figures across the globe, but done really well in Europe, one of the highest selling games in Europe this year. So yeah, it just done well. Remnant 2 of course did well when it launched 2023. Now Dragon Evil Guard was the game I was talking about when it comes to Dragon Dogma 2, because in my opinion, I think for a game like Dragon Dogma 2, a game that the first one was successful over time, releases, cult classic, good word of mouth. This one, had a strong franchise. The previous entry in the franchise was the Game of the Year winner. I honestly thought it would at least match Dragon Dogma 2 sales. Budgets are different, companies are different, but I think if we can't even sell as close to Dragon's Dogma 2, which was an IP that only has one game, compared to Dragon Age, I was disappointed. So I was not surprised when EA said after announcing 1.5 million players that the game did not meet expectations. To me, that was poor sales numbers. Now, why did it fail? Maybe the gameplay was not differentiated enough, which I think it was differentiated, but I think it just didn't resonate with fans, which is something you can't really predict. But I think a lot of backlash on the writing as well from fans of the games, and expectations were not really met with the players. So yeah, word of mouth didn't really take the game so far. But I plan to play it very soon and figure out what happened to it myself. I haven't played it. I don't like talking about games I haven't played too much because it's not easy. But reading online comments, watching YouTube videos is a good way to have an idea of what the reception was of the game. Okay, so you have games like Killer Frequency, Haze, Broken World, a lot of indie games that just didn't do well in that range. So yeah, non-AAA games are suffering. Indie games too can suffer within that scoring because so many games to play, so much content to watch. You have the forever games like Fortnite and Roblox and Call of Duty that are taking people's time every year. It's just difficult to stand out, and this category is a very tough category. It just shows me that how differentiated is your game, how well does your game play. People really love your game to put money down on it, and it's not easy. We have other games here: Sifu, Sparkling Zero, and games that did really well. Let's just drop down further. We have some notable games that didn't do well here. One Last Stop, even though it was advertised to death, still did not seem to resonate well with the audiences, and yeah, sad. A couple of games here that have done really well: Sonic and Generation, Cataclysmo, Little Big City. Man, they've done okay. Calls to Golf, Wild Hearts had bugs, poor performance, many things that you didn't live up. Same thing with Calls to Golf, it just didn't live up to expectations. You have a unique story-driven games like Vemba that reached out to a lot of people and the likes. And yeah, we have a bunch of games here in 70 to 79 range. So those going to be picking up a few. Roller Drone, I felt it did okay, but the studio was closed down, so I was wrong, most likely. Pre-Showtime, it's one of those games. Card Shark, well, disappointing, but didn't seem to resonate well with audience. We have other games like Need for Speed Unbound, which makes sense. Need for Speed franchise is at the lowest point. Star Wars Outlaws, I think Star Wars Outlaws just suffered from fatigue of Star Wars franchise, and the game was just not good enough in some aspects. I don't think the gameplay was differentiated enough. It didn't really, in my opinion, it didn't sell the Star Wars fantasy as people expected. So yeah. Crew did okay. Top Spin, not so well. Tennis games don't seem to be hype anymore, unless you're Mario. Anyway, Tales, yeah. Sadly, it didn't do so well as well. Tales of Kanzera, Zao, yeah. Penny's Big Breakaway also didn't do so well. Unique graphics, unique gameplay, but doesn't seem to resonate well with the audience. I don't know what their testing showed them, but yeah. We have games like Marvel Rivals and Disney Speedstorm, leveraging characters, some unique gameplay mechanics, nothing too different, but just something unique in the gameplay mechanics to make it different from those on the market. Was good enough to Europa. I think Europa was successful, but I haven't been able to get any concrete figures on that. Atom 4, Dead Island 2, both successful games. Dead Island 2 really did well for Embracer. So yeah, you'll go down again. We see some many games starting to see a lot of red. Here, I'll just pick a couple of big ones here. Rainbow Six Extraction, not too differentiated, didn't really do well to separate itself from other games, so makes sense. Sandland, for instance, the IP was not really well known. The gameplay was not fantastic as well. Nothing too different, so expected. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they did incredibly well. Another 20 million plus in 3 days. It's Pokemon. Unfortunately, it's Pokemon. I think they gave me even day with. I think the original score was around 69 on Metacritic. I think it moved up to 70 as more reviews came out. So, but it's Pokemon. It's a big franchise. Once again, if you have a franchise like Pokemon, you are mostly immune to many things because a lot of parents will get it for their kids regardless. So, yeah. So Pokemon will really try and ensure that the brand is known towards kids rather than really focus on the quality of the games. In my opinion, I think now they're trying to focus on the quality of the games, especially since the backlash for this game was so much, and I know they want to protect their brand. So yeah, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. I just think the Avatar IP is a very strange IP to me. I don't seem to understand why people like it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think the IP translates very well off the TV screen in terms of movies. But let's see the future. And we have other games. You have to go down. So many games here with this range, and they've done well. Some have not done really well. Blaze of Fire didn't seem to have done well. Trek to Yomi, not so sure about that as well. Undisputed, really well. 70. You would think this kind of game will not do well, but unique gameplay, not a lot of boxing game competition around, so a lot of people wanted a boxing game. This game brought it out for them, so yeah, good success to them. So I think it's just unique from the fact that not many boxing games are available, so it will sell well. And just to go down again and pick out some notable failures here or games that did really well. Forspoken, Dialogue, in my opinion, horrible story. Exploration was fine enough, not so great. I played it. I wanted the game to end after a certain point, and the game gives the option to end it after a certain point as well. So you can just skip the final boss fight and just end the game, which was good to do if you wanted to. Shadow of Doubt did not live up to its expectations, and yeah, well, the gameplay seemed to be repetitive. Gotham Knights. I played it for a bit. I don't know what to say. Just one of those live service games that just did not hit, and that's just it. Precinct didn't seem to have lit the sales wall on fire, so sad. FBC Firebreak, another live service game that just didn't seem to catch the audience. I don't think it was unique enough or differentiated enough to make people say, yeah, let's. Well, no, I think I'll say it was unique. Having the game set in the old house, where the control games were set, and fighting off the hiss. Yeah, it makes sense, but I just don't think it was. I don't know if those things are compelling enough, or if the fans that love the law of control are big enough to sell a game to. I don't know. Just seemed to not be a good idea in my opinion, and not surprised it didn't do so well. It's one of those games I just think is a throwaway game. It may well hit or not hit, just like Concord as well. Concord was destined to be a disaster because not being free to play $40 is one. Then being a hero shooter that is not differentiated in any significant way. The gameplay and the hero's abilities were not really differentiated. No third person mode like Marvel Rivals. No unique IP like Marvel Rivals. Not even one unique mechanic like how Marvel Rivals has house destruction, not like or the different various colorful modes and playful modes that Marvel Rivals has. It just seems to be a generic hero shooter, and you expect people to leave Overwatch and other games Pokemon played. I think it's just strange, yeah. And then pay $40 for it too when Marvel Rivals is free. No, just think it was destined to fail, and just one of those things. Same thing with Suicide Kill the Justice League, another live service game which I felt they didn't understand their audience, which I understand. Rocksteady probably developing this game for several years. They had no other option than to release it. Couldn't just pivot, but yeah, I think they should have stuck to their single player roots, made a single player game, because the single player and the live service elements clashed. And no matter what they tried to explain, because they did like 2 videos trying to say, oh yeah, this game is single player with multiplayer elements, and try and stress that you can play the single player. It's really annoying to play in single player because of the live service elements. So yeah, Skull and Bones, another live service game disaster. Nothing to talk about here. It's just one of those things. Gameplay not good enough, graphics not good enough, many things not good enough. Can't resonate, too long in development. Yeah, the hype behind the game had disappeared, but Ubisoft were obligated to release the game. They took some investment from the government, so we knew it was going to come out regardless. So yeah. And then some other games here. We've come to the lowest level. Not many games below 60, and not many games notably to talk about. Any game here, if you're getting below 60, you have a lot of technical issues, and your game is not just good enough. So Skull and Bones, as I mentioned, technical issues as well. Redfall, technical issues. Story was not compelling. Gameplay was not really compelling. Babylon's Fall, same story, technical issues, poor life service. Combat not fantastic. Yeah. Mind's Eye, I think everybody can easily see what happened to Mind's Eye this year. Technical issues as well. A lot of technical issues. AI was not good enough. Story did not seem good enough. Some unique concepts there, but wasn't differentiated or good enough. And in this day and age, technical issues are highly frowned upon. You have poor technical challenges in your games, your reviews naturally drop. Now, only Nintendo seems to be immune to having technical issues in their games. Nintendo, Pokemon, whatever. But if you're not one of those 2 people, you have to assure you don't have technical issues in your game. It runs well enough. If not, you're just going to tank. Now, in conclusion, what do I recommend? Since you can't really predict what your game will score before you release it, once you have given your games out to reviewers, it's already out there. Once the reviews start coming out, it's already out there. What you can do is only react. So first, let's start from below. If your game is in this score range, if you have the funds, update it, fix the gameplay, fix the technical issues, see what you can do to in your community to drive engagement. But usually if it's at this level, my advice is sunset and move on. Don't waste too much time. The problems may be too costly to fix, and you may not really get the payoff you're looking for. Once your game is below 50, below 60, just ignore and move on with your life, essentially. Same thing with 60 to 70. Very few games break out of success here. If the problems are not so significant, maybe it's technical issue that can easily be fixed, fix it. If it's a problem with your AI, maybe your AI is too generic, like in Shadow of Doubt, if it can be fixed, fix it. If the challenge to fixing it is not so much, fix it. If you need to redo your whole game like Gotham Knight or Suicide Squad, move on with your life. It doesn't pay. The earlier you can finish it and wrap up, the better. Find a way to make it offline, that players can play it offline if the game can be played offline or something. Anything that needs to rework your game or how your game works in total, it's not worth your time. You move on. Next thing is, if you're at 70 to 79, this is, I think, where you can, you've gotten your score. I think this is the part where you think, okay, let's wait and see the outcome. Are we going to be successful massively at launch. Then you can look at your community. What's your period numbers like? What's your community engagement like? If those things are good and showing that they're good, this score comes out, you should expect those things to grow. At least, well, not really. You need to be careful here because it's a chance that you may lose period numbers because your game comes out between 70 and 79. There's a chance you may lose period numbers, you may lose engagement, you may lose your fans because they are disappointed with it, and it may be a couple of things that make reviewers drop into the score. So you need to be wary about that. So whatever happens towards launch, you observe. I think it's time to make sure you observe and see what this review has cost on your sales, and then you should start preparing your way to fix it. Once again, it's technical issues that can be easily be fixed. Try and fix it before launch. If it's a tweak you need to tweak, an update you need to tweak to balance gameplay or something else, do it as quickly as you can. And then use community, use simple marketing, streaming, word of mouth, everything to push your game to your audience. So I think that is fair. Now, if you get between 80 and 85, simple thing here. If you're a AAA developer, be slightly worried. If you're a publisher, be slightly worried. Once again, look at your pre-order numbers, look at everything. If it may not really drop your pre-order numbers, but you may not see a significant increase. And once again, you look at your game. What are the problems the community, the reviewers are talking about? What are the problems? Can you easily fix it? If you're a AAA developer, if you have the cash, I think sometimes it may be good to just see what you can tweak. It's not too expensive, tweak it, and then small marketing as well to push the game. Game is good enough, word of mouth, or unique enough, word of mouth will take it and sell it for a long period of time. Your launch day one sales may not be fantastic, but if it's a good game, has something unique in between, it should sell well over time if you play your cards right in terms of marketing. It may not really work out every time. Games are a hit-driven business. Some things are just hits and they make it, but I think at least that's a recommendation. I'll say you should try to solve the problem at that moment. And do a deep dive, see what you can adjust to resonate with your audience that you've lost. At least the audience you found in your testing phase. Now, when we now get to 85 to 89, congrats. For most of you, your game will do very well. You don't need to worry too much. Your pre-order numbers will most likely soar. You would see some great results. If you're a big franchise, check if your franchise health or brand health is not waning, because if your brand health is waning, the score may not do much for you. Then make sure your game does not bump. That's just it. This kind of score will just make your game not just bump. Do okay. You may not get the high profit margins you're looking for. You may just break even or do well enough to make some profits. But yeah, if you're in that kind of situation, a franchise game, people expect higher scores, for example 90s, and your game comes out with 8 something, you can be sure it may affect your potential long-term sales, but I don't think the games will fail. That's just it. Now, if you are between 90 and above, congratulations, you are in the very few percentage of companies that have games in that score level. There are few, trust me, and you are one of the best in the game industry at making games. Be happy. The chances of a game failing is very rare. Your pre-order numbers, if your game reviews come out before your game launches, your pre-order numbers should shoot up drastically. Your word of mouth, talk on community should shoot up drastically. Your preview, the hype around your game's launch should be great. When the game comes out, if players play it and they resonate with what critics have said, your game is a high 90 and above, just know that you're gonna see more massive sales because word of mouth is gonna push it and you're gonna be very successful. And is anything you feel you need to tweak and adjust that can make your game better, maybe the one or two complaints the reviewers may have, and can push your game over the edge to even be considered a masterpiece, try and do it. For me, games in this category usually have fantastic gameplay, which is once in a while gameplay that you can't really find in many places. They have very unique stories. They have great soundtracks, and especially the trifecta of fantastic gameplay development and game development. So they have everything to the T. And maybe they have great voice acting or not voice acting, whatever, but they have those three story: narrative, music, gameplay. Those things are done well, and maybe they have unique lore and all those things. But yeah, this is one of the things that I think makes a game stand out. Once your game gets this score, ready for success. Aside from that, I don't have anything much to say on this again. If you enjoyed this kind of video, enjoy talking about Metacritic and the various charts I put up, stay tuned. I'm going to be making a video on the earnings release from Nintendo and Sony. Yeah, that's my next video. Thank you very much. Once again, this has been a 3Ps and Games. If you like talking about the video game industry, please like and subscribe for more insights. Thank you very much.